Four musicians in a small town in Ontario leave a party and are confronted by a strange man who asks them for a ride. They reluctantly agree. As they set off down the highway, little do they realize what was waiting for them around the next bend. This case, nicknamed the Bandwagon Encounter, was investigated by Conway. It was 1973, Jordan, Ontario, Canada. Four musicians, including Tom Campbell, had just finished a music gig and were busy packing their gear into their van. A stranger whom they had not noticed at the party suddenly approached them. He asked them for a lift home. The four friends thought about it and then decided, why not? The group finished loading the last of the instruments on board, then they got in and set off down the road. For some unexplainable reason, the driver took them down a service road that bordered the Queen Elizabeth Highway on the north and Lake Ontario on the south. As they drove closer to Charles Paley Park, the driver observed lights up ahead and assumed that there had been an accident. He slowly brought the vehicle to a stop. The band members in the back of the van, including Tom, began to wonder what was going on. When they asked the driver, he simply replied, "I think you better take a look at this." The group ventured to the front of the vehicle and peered out the window. They could not believe what they were looking at. Right there, in the middle of the road, a metallic, saucer-shaped object was sitting. At this point, Tom claims they began to discuss what to do next. They determined that the best course of action would be to return to the bar and wait, and maybe return later in hopes that the road would be clear. When the driver attempted to turn the vehicle around, he discovered that it would not move. Just then, the vehicle began to move by some force. To the men, it seemed to be slowly moving sideways and in the direction of the strange object. The drummer, who was seated in the passenger seat in the front, urged the driver to put his foot on the brake. The driver insisted that he was already doing it and it was having no effect. Tom had the sense that the vehicle was no longer even on the road, but hovering above it. The van came to a halt within 30 feet of the craft. The terrified drummer suggested that everyone stay still. Just then, figures emerged from the saucer. The drummer was the first to say something. "Did you see that? I don't believe it. Somebody's getting out of that thing." To Tom, the figures appeared small. The door handle on the driver's side door began rattling. Tom noticed that the driver wasn't moving. He was just sitting there still, staring straight ahead. Tom next heard footsteps moving down alongside the van to the rear door. At the same time, he saw the head of one of the beings pass by the side window. Whatever it wasn't human. It had white, cream-colored skin with black eyes. Just then, the rear door jiggled for about 30 seconds. They were trying to get into the back of the van. To Tom's utter surprise, the hitchhiker, who had not moved from the back, suddenly leaned forward and opened the door, as if on cue. When he did so, Tom could see four strange beings looking in. He was petrified. One of them promptly climbed in, yet his head did not reach the ceiling of the van. In the dim light, his features were not very clear. It was apparent he had no ears and a small mouth. His facial muscles showed concern, probably because Tom was contemplating attacking them, but he couldn't move. At this point, Tom began hearing something in his head. The being who had crawled into the van was speaking to him telepathically. He informed Tom that his hostile thoughts made him concerned for the safety of his crew. He added that it was not their intention to harm the band members and that they were there on a mission of peace. They simply wanted to run some tests, but only had time and enough equipment to examine 3 of the members of his group. "Will you come with me, please?" the being asked Tom. The bass player and the drummer also heard the message in their head. At that point, the being, which Tom came to understand was some kind of captain, turned around and caught his foot in the tripod of the snare drum, which promptly rolled out onto the road. One of the crew members picked it up and returned it to the van. The drummer remained seated throughout all this and did not move. To his surprise, the captain asked Tom if the piece of equipment was damaged. Addressing Tom, "Is it yours?" Tom indicated that it was not his property and pointed to the drummer. Tom noted that the drummer's facial expressions seemed to be of fear and anger, as if to suggest he wasn't happy that he had drawn the being's attention to him. "Come out for a minute. Is it damaged?" the captain asked him. "No, it looks okay," the drummer insisted. As Tom climbed out, he grabbed a bag of recorders, a flute-like instrument. Even in their state of fright, Tom remembered that his 2 bandmates asked him why he was taking the recorders. "Are you going to do a concert for them?" they asked. Tom's intent was to show the aliens and create a little social interest. The The captain again read his thoughts and said, "It's okay, let him bring them." The group passed down the side of the van and entered the saucer through an egg-shaped doorway. Steps were visible and a hallway further on the curve to the left. Entering the craft, the drummer accidentally hit his head on the roof. The saucer captain asked him, "Are you okay?" The drummer replied, "I think so." The captain seemed concerned and asked, "Do you want us to check?" The drummer insisted that he was fine. Entering the craft, the 3 band members saw 3 chrome cots on wheels. Beings led them into the room and asked them to undress and sit on the cots. Tom asked if it was okay to keep his underwear on, and the captain, as if sensing how uncomfortable they were, agreed to let them keep them on. Then one of the beings came over and took the bundle of clothing and the recorders. This action worried Tom. "Not to worry, I'll leave them here until we've finished," the being told him telepathically. He looked over and noticed that the drummer and bass player were over by the door talking to the aliens. As the bass player took his clothes off, he revealed he had long johns on. Due to this, the drummer began kidding him, and Tom started laughing. At that time, Tom recalled that he and his other band members felt no fear, only a sense of rapport with their abductors. Even the aliens seemed to share in the humor of the situation. Tom felt no pressure, only a need to cooperate. Under normal circumstances, Tom and his bandmates would be shuddering in fear in the presence of strange-looking, non-human beings, and the realization that they were in the midst of being abducted. Yet they felt no such fear. It simply made no sense. From there, Tom watched as the aliens wheeled a cart towards him with what looked like a tray of instruments on it. Some looked like dental probes and lights. Picking up a black thing that looked like the handle of a phone, the being told Tom that he was going to use it on him. Tom asked him if it would hurt. "No," the being told him. With that, the alien shone light on his coat, which promptly became invisible, only showing his arm underneath. Repeating the process on Tom, he was able to see his muscles, arteries, and bone. Also, the veins contracting and expanding in time with his heartbeat. Was then told to lay down on the cot, as they wanted to view the rest of his body, which they viewed on a large screen. After this, he was told to look at this light. Tom tried, but found himself pulling away from viewing it, as it pulsated in concentric circles, producing a hypnotic effect and a sense of drowsiness. "Look at it. There's something I want you to see," he was told. Tom remembered that not long after looking into the light, he fell into a trance-like state and lost all memory of what happened after that. Thanks to New York-based psychologist Aphrodite Claymore, Tom was able to remember many details that had initially been forgotten. It is curious why the being sought to eliminate these memories from conscious recall, but not the others. Tom recalled that after he peered into the light, the beings relocated him to a room on the right. 5 or 6 other beings appeared. They moved a large machine that appeared to Tom to have arms over where he was laying. This machine also had hoses, probes, and a light on the end of a stick. They checked his fingers, ears, and inside his mouth, taking skin and hair samples which they put inside plastic bags. In fact, they were extremely thorough. They checked every part of him. After they had finished, they removed the machine and then wheeled him over to where his clothes lay. The beings told him to put their clothes back on. As the 3 band members stood around getting dressed, they were asked if they had any questions they wished to ask. As the aliens busily moved about, putting away their tools and machines, one of the band members spoke up, saying, "Are you from outer space?" "Yes," came the reply. More questions followed. "Do you have bases on Earth?" one of the band members asked. "Yes, we have many bases on Earth, some underwater, some in desolate areas where few people go. We have one here," pointing out one of the portholes towards Lake Ontario. During this exchange, Tom had been regarding them as socially and intellectually superior, even viewing them as angelic beings, but obviously highly developed. This area of thought brought Tom to ask his one question: what is the true religion on Earth? It is clear to Tom that the beings were shocked by this question. They looked at each other before speaking. "Why would you ask a question like that?" "Because you are more advanced than us," Tom replied. With that, the beings answered. It was simple and matter of fact. There is no correct religion on Earth. Tom admits this answer took him by surprise. For whatever reason, the beings decided that it was time to end the questions. With that, the 3 band members were escorted to the door and the bass player was sent out. The drummer was talking and smiling and turned to wave as he walked back to the van. Tom, the last to leave, started talking to the alien standing in the doorway, but felt himself going into a trance state again. At the same time, he was overwhelmed by a feeling of kinship, sadness, and love, all of which emanated from these beings and resulted in tears in his eyes. Accompanying all this was hope, a sense of purpose that was crucial to their work and that they needed him. Additionally, he was told that he had a special mission to help in their work and would be a beacon of light to people around him, helping people appreciate that aliens are real and that it was important work to do. Then the alien brought him out of the trance state. Before departing, the captain reminded Tom that there was something that he wanted to show him. Tom didn't remember at first, but then recalled the recorders in his bag. "What are these?" the being asked him. "Musical instruments. We play them for our entertainment," Tom replied. "How do you play them?" the captain asked. "You blow air into them." It was apparent to Tom that the alien didn't understand what he was being told. Tom took one of the recorders and played a little tune. The captain seemed impressed. Seeing this, Tom took a small soprano recorder out of the bag and gave it to him as a souvenir. "What is a souvenir?" the being asked him. "A gift to remember me by," Tom told him. "That would be fine." Tom held it out for the alien to take, but at the same time held on to it. The alien then pulled it out of his hand, causing Tom to look down and notice that the captain had 3 fingers and nails that were long and curved down. At the same time, he wondered about giving it to him or not. The alien promptly picked up on this. "Do you want it back?" he asked. "No, you have it," Tom insisted. "Are you sure?" the being said. With that, the captain seemed to take notice of Tom's wooziness. "Are you okay? Do you want one of my crew members to walk you back to your vehicle?" "No, I can find my way back." He then said goodbye and started walking away from the ship. He could feel the wind blowing in his face, and his face felt itchy. Reaching up, he discovered that his face was wet, and then realized he had been crying, but didn't know why. Getting into the van, Tom found everyone sitting like zombies. Something else that struck him as odd was the hitchhiker was gone. Tom sensed that the stranger, although quite human in appearance, may have been working with the beings. Peering out the window, Tom watched as the ship took off extremely fast until it was a small light, then it was gone. As if coming out of a trance, the 4 band members were all soon talking amongst themselves about what to do next. The drummer was adamant that they not report it. "Everyone will think we're crazy. No one will believe us, and I don't want to be ridiculed over something like this." The guitarist agreed. Tom thought otherwise. He believed they should report it. "If you report it, we will deny it," the drummer told him. Consequently, Tom had no choice other than to go along with their decision. Then he became aware the whole way home of a telepathic voice saying, "You are going to forget. You are going to forget," over and over. This continued the whole way home. "No, I'm going to remember. I'm going to remember," he kept fighting the command. "I want to remember." Further down the road, Tom asked the drummer and guitarist again, "Shouldn't we report this?" They looked at him. In a sincere tone of voice, they both replied, "Report what?" They had already forgotten.